Hey everybody, it's Thomas. Let's talk about some Blood Bowl League of Blood Bowl. We're going to go over what happened last week, and we can talk about what's happening this week. Had a little longer week this time, calendar-wise, just because of the holiday, and we're going to have a few more of that as things progress. It's November, December. These things got to be expected. As you can see, I shouldn't have talked so much last week about how I don't have any sad things in this column, because this week, of course, I do. Finally picked up a permanent injury as well. Just the niggling, though, so it's not really that bad. And it's on the throw with 0 SPP, so it's kind of annoying. But I can't really afford to fire him, and it's just niggling, so I'm going to keep him. If it was minus agility or minus strength, then he'd get the boot. But it's not the case, so we're okay. Bunny got knocked out before she could get her touchdown, number 2, so she remains unleveled. However, William did manage to pick up another touchdown in order to get to level 3, so hooray for that. Really wrestled with what to get on William because I want to get wrestle and leap so I can leap past people or into weird spots and uppercut ball carriers. So wrestle is the key skill to do that because a lot of ball carriers are going to end up with block. It's a good skill to have in this league especially, and it's just something I want to be able to deal with in general, regardless of if it's a ball carrier or not. I want to be able to take care of blocked people, and I don't want to get hit. So I almost took Leap because Leap is really good and will help me out a lot. But 5 agility catchers can already score really, really well. So getting Leap now is kind of a waste because I'll just get stepped on and punched. Whereas Wrestle at least helps me not be punched quite as hard. And because I have 8 movement allowance, I can still get away from whoever I took down with me. So there's good news there. Basically, it's just protection. I could have gotten dodge here as well, but Wrestle is the end target for this build. I'm assuming I'm only going to get to maybe level 4 on William, so yeah. The week is done, like I said, and the game can be viewed up here. It'll be linked there. Let's talk about what happened in the game. Obviously, some not great things. I did manage to win 2-1. Andrew made me pay for every single touchdown, though. Only got 2, and I got 1 pass and the MVP. Definitely not a great week for me, but not too bad. 12 SPP is still pretty good. Andrew, however, did much better. 4 casualties, 1 touchdown, and the MVP. That's a whole lot of progression that this team desperately needed. So good news for Andrew. That's a total of 16 SPP. So he got more levels up than I did, or at least more SPP than I did, which is great. Did some throwing for no avail. Or no, that's a handoff maybe. I don't remember. Whatever. Basically, though, I really crushed the first half and then did not do so great the second half. I think Andrew actually could have won this game or tied it at least had he been a little more conservative after I got my first touchdown. After I got my first touchdown, he pretty much front-loaded the line and left the ball all on its own, and I was able to get to it because I'm elf, and that happens. Can't complain about my winnings, though. I had 2 fame, and I rolled a 5, so hey, 80k, great. Puts me up to a position where I could buy a replacement thrower if I wanted to. But like I said, I'm probably going to end up keeping this one. What I'm probably going to do in terms of buying people are filling in some linemen. I've got a fair number of positionals now. I've got 3 catchers, 2 throwers, and still have my blitzers, which I haven't had to replace, thankfully. The 4th catcher would be nice, but I really need some stuff that will fill out my bench without bumping up my team value too much. Because it looks really low right now because I have 3 players out. Without that, my team value is much higher. And even with them being out, my team value is still going to be 180 more than this. It'll be at 1260 just with mercenaries. So the reason I'm not buying anybody is because I'm going to have so many mercenaries and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to wait and see if any of these mercenaries happen to, I don't know, get SPP, which they ought to do sometimes. So if that happens, then I'll probably buy them. And so I'm leaving the money around in case they get that. Beyond that, probably look to buy 1 or 2 just to fill this up. That would give me a fair number of players to help me stand up and field enough people, which is pretty key. In fact, it would give me 13 players total. So that's probably what I'm going to shoot for, buying 1 or 2 linemen. We'll see how we do next week. Ideally, my loners won't do anything except get punched. They're really good at that. So hopefully that's what happens. Again, another week of winning fan factors. I'm up to 5, which is great. Can't complain too much whatsoever. So let's take a look at Andrew's half of things. Like I said, He did okay. Only 20k is kind of the sad part, but good SPP generation, which he needed. Got it sprinkled around a whole bunch of people, including these Chaos Warriors. So these guys are all within hitting distance, in this case, or MVP distance of getting things. Certainly not hard to score with Chaos Warriors if you need to as well, thanks to 3 agility. Got another level up on a Beastman, though. For this one, he took block, which I think is fine. I wouldn't have done it. Again, like I mentioned, every time I would have gotten some sort of ball handling skill. But now that he's got claw and a block, he could certainly go for another one. He could also just decide to get more block. He's got a fair number of choices, and the Chaos team is starting to pick up steam. I was confused that he doesn't have any fan factor, but he just, his record, I thought he had more ties than this, but he's only got 1 tie and 4 losses, so not a lot of fan factor generation if he didn't get any the first week. So, this team is on the cusp, basically. I think this week will be very determinant on how the rest of the season goes for Andrew. He's got a bunch of players that are within MVP range. Certainly other things he can use at 120. We talked about what he's going to do with these. He says he's going to save up for the Minotaur, which I think is definitely a good call for this team. Just more punching power, always a good thing. Yeah, so slowly but surely, Andrew's coming around. He probably will get block here if he doesn't take my advice and get extra arms, but extra arms is what I would get. Let's take a look here at the rest of the week here. We had I'm going to call it a weird game of Khemri versus Human. You can watch Mark's game. It'll be linked up here. But have a dead Blitzer. Yeah, let's take a look at the details here. Sid got 30k out of this. 1-1 tie. No completed pass, but to get a catch. 3 casualties. Once again, Mark got out-casualtied. Although he broke more armor, he got out-casualtied pretty hard. 3 casualties, 1 touchdown, MVP. It's not too bad, actually. It's not as well as I did, but not too bad either. This is, oh no, it's better than I did because he's 6, 9, 14, so he got 2 more than me. And if we look at the Mark side of things, no casualties again. 3 casualties sustained. Only 1 touchdown and 1 MVP. 8 SPP is not what this team needed, unfortunately, but sometimes those are the breaks. First half went great for Mark. Absolutely fantastic. I'd say it was textbook Khemri. And the second half fell apart due to Throw Raws not really cooperating and just some bad dice at crucial moments. Sid did have a death, like I mentioned. Blitzer got surfed and killed. Luckily, I think it was the one with 0 SPP, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. Either way, not that great for Sid. But did get a couple of level ups here. Thrower leveled up and got accurate, which is great. Sid loves to chuck his ball around, so this will definitely help make those passes more complete. Anything else here? Oh yes, this Blitzer leveled up and got Dauntless, which I think is really good, actually. Guard may be more helpful overall, but Dauntless will help this Blitzer do what Sid is doing. He's basically playing like an elf light team or an elf hit team in that he's using his Blitzers to clear a path, getting a catcher through, and then chucking the ball and swarming with his slightly above average speed, which I think works fine. So, what can we say here? Got his third reroll as well, which, thumbs up, definitely endorse that course of action. Only 10k left though. I mean, some of that's just rolling not that great this week. But there's not a lot to buy anyway. Even if he had gotten like 70, which would have been crazy. I don't think he had any fame, but I don't remember. Not a lot to buy. Maybe another lineman here and there. But at this point, I think saving up for Blitzer number 2 or replacement Blitzer number 3 is good. The cost 90, which isn't cheap. In theory, he could have this for next week, but this team is still looking pretty solid. Dauntless is a good addition to this team's hitting power and should help him out just fine. Let's take a look at the other matches of the week here. Last match of the week was the Orc versus Dwarf, a hard-fought game, as you can see. Finally, a permanent injury on this team as well. Missed next game due to -1 movement allowance. Ouch, not so good there. Let's take a look at the game itself. 1-0, the touchdown was scored on turn 16, so another squeaker for Grey Duck, who remains totally undefeated in all senses of the word. Out SPP'd finally, though. 8 is, I think, the lowest she's gotten in a long time. I think that includes last season. Yeah, I think that's definitely the worst she's done. But team's looking pretty good already. Doesn't really need too much of it. Dwarf's got a fair amount of it. Orville got 2 casualties MVP, so actually got more SPP for this with 9 instead of 8, so beats out by 1. And, 40k. Not the best there. But, I mean, what can we say here? No casualty just out, so this is probably from the tackle or a GFI. Don't know if Orwell's going to post the game or not. If he does, then we can certainly check it out there. But, yeah. Basically looks like the Dwarf team was able to break a bunch of armor, do some damage. Good deal. Sad is only a lineman that's out, but So 140 is the total number here. A couple things you could do. Might be possibly worth it to fire this lineman and replace it. 4 isn't the end of the world, but it's not great, certainly. No other level ups whatsoever here. So many players close to level 3, but not quite there. Guard was the pickup here, which I think is great. Probably helped out in this game quite a bit. Troll is certainly an option here, but choices, I guess. We'll see what happens. Let's take a look at Orville's half of the bench. Smash tip here on this blocker. -1 puts it to 3 MA. That is a dwarf that is worth firing. Didn't buy his third reroll, which I think is a mistake. Let's see how much money he made. 10k. That is the worst. It is literally the worst possible option. So that is no good. Reroll number 3, I think, still has to be a priority. I'm shocked he didn't buy it before the game. Just may have forgotten to. What did he get on this Mighty Blow? Great. Yeah, that's what I would have gotten on this Troll Slayer. So thumbs up for that. Certainly helps do what Troll Slayers do best, which is remove people from the pitch. Although, hopefully, not my people in the future. Yeah, I mean, third reroll, I think, is the name of the game. I think it's what has to happen. This team has been suffering all season due to a lack of enough rerolls, I think. Third reroll would definitely help that out quite a bit. I mean, I guess an argument could be made to replace this dwarf as well, but I think the reroll takes priority at this point. Just eat up the mercenary for the turn or for the week and go from there. I think this is definitely worth firing. 3 movement allowances is really rough to deal with. Blockers are already really slow, and basically having even a blitz from the ground be a GFI or any kind of movement from the ground be a GFI is really hard to deal with. Certainly his choice, though. It could keep it. Dwarves aren't necessarily the fastest bunch anyway, so not necessarily the end of the world. But with 0 SVP, if he has the money next week, I think that'd be the way to go. Let's see here. And then we have Lizards versus Chris Scavens. Jessup did a number on Chris early on because this Crocs Zero got piling on, which I didn't think about when I recommended getting guard. But piling on actually makes a lot of sense for the Crocs. Reason for that is simply that Crocs is fast. Crocs can move really quickly, and, you know, standing up is a 3 movement allowance left over, and piling on with Mighty Blow, always a good combo. So not a bad choice there whatsoever. Did eat an injury here with a smash tip. Let's take a look at the actual match before we get too much into the team weeds. So like I said, 2-0, 1 casualty dished out. Chris once again out injuries a bigger team, which is hilarious. Looks like he ate a lot of KOs on just getting punched. Looks like his tackle didn't result in anything bad. And I believe the casualty is from the Crocs piling on like turn 1, which is terrible. Aside from the casualty, though, nothing at all. It's really weird to see a Skaven team with no touchdowns at all, but some ball handling problems were experienced from what I understand. Chris played a little risky as well, and Jessup beat on him because the Lizard team is really fast and really big. So in terms of SPP generated, looking at 6, 8, 13 for Jessup, which is great. Chris walks away with 11 total, so not the best week for Chris. He definitely needs more SPP. 50k for Jessup as well. So good numbers put up. Can't complain whatsoever. Got another injury on the Crocs, so that's great. We're looking at a total of 2 casualties, so good deal for Jessup. This Saurus is one of the people that got injured and is -1 MA. Tough to say what Jessup wants to do at this point. His this skink got diving tackle, which is cool. Yeah, 2 catches, 1 diving tackle. I can see that. Really needs more SPP on his hitting pieces, though. It's really tragic that he isn't getting more. Might be worth it to try to score with the Saurus. We'll see. I think it might be also worthwhile to fire the Saurus and buy a new one. You know, there's not a lot to spend money on here. You got 3 rerolls now, which is great. But the Skinks are doing a great job of not getting hurt, and honestly, it's the same thing we were talking about with Orville. The Lizards' team big thing is that they're fast. Why be out of Saurus next week if you don't have to be? Just boot the Saurus and get a new one. That's what I think is the safest call. God, I love this team. Just boot it, replace it. I think that's a safer way to go. Just why suffer through the movement allowance if you don't have to? And as for poor Chris and his rough week, what did we get here? 70k, so that's a good deal there. Got to replace with Storm Vermin. Any progression here? I feel like this lineman didn't have block before. Could be misremembering that, though. By the way, this team desperately needs more SPP. It's not doing great. I'm getting away with a lot of stuff because I have a ton of SPP on Elf. Christian needs more. That said, all of these gutter runners could very easily level up next week. 2 touchdowns, 2 throws, done. Easy. In terms of the rest of this, got a fair number of players within striking distance or MVP distance of another level up, so fair number of options there. This thrower, actually, if it got MVP, would be able to advance to level 3, so that's the thing as well. Could pick up Accurate, which a thrower could definitely use on this team. Sitting at 5 fan factor, not too bad. Yeah, I don't know. Not a lot more for this team to do. Could buy another thrower with his money. Could just buy another lineman to help fill the gaps. Definitely has some options. He's got more than 11 players, though, so he's okay. And no permanent injuries, it looks like, so not too bad, I guess. Yeah, I mean, at 12 players, might be better just to camp on the money to hire a replacement. Maybe save up for the Rat Ogre or a reroll. Definitely some choices there, but I don't think he wants or needs the Rat Ogre at this point. Seems kind of a waste. So that's the end of the week. My predictions were pretty wrong this week, except for me and maybe Orc. I think I guessed those right. But hey, you can't win them every week. In terms of next week, let's talk about it. We've got humans versus lizards. This should be a pretty interesting matchup here. So you can definitely catch the skinks, and the catchers can bully the skinks. And because Jessup doesn't have a ton of hitting skills, the catchers should actually be pretty okay. The ogre can mess it up pretty good. I thought this ogre got a level up, but I think I must be mistaken entirely because he's just out. This ogre not having guard is kind of a rough spot, and in fact, the lack of guard might be an issue here. But we'll see. I think the blitzers and how well he deals with the skinks will be the key thing. Sit at 3 rerolls is definitely a big danger. Accurate also helps his offensive game. So we'll see. Let's take a look at team value too. 1220 on the Sid side of things. And then if we look at Jessup, 1160. Although if he replaces the Saurus, which I think he should, then he'll be at 1240. So I believe that is no SPP, or no SPP, no inducement money being handed out. Yeah, it'd be 20k. So no big deal. So these teams are looking at that. That said, Lizards having so much more strength can definitely be the difference maker. The extra hitting power is definitely going to be noticeable, and it'll be really hard for Sid to get anything except 1 die blocks that aren't from the Ogre. And even then, it is very possible to clear the line, have the Crocs punch the Ogre with a 2 die block and piling on. Ugh, not great. That's my thought here. That's like the big thing Sid has to worry about. That said, Dauntless on this Blitzer will help a lot. It'll at least help make those 1 die blocks a little more common, possibly 2 die blocks even more so. And the mobility will help as well. Part of the way that the Lizard team has been doing this as well as it has been, aside from solid play on Jessup's part, is just that everybody's so much slower than him. So that's something to keep in mind. And again, all these skills being on Skinks is not unhelpful. It helps his offensive game, which is the part that needs the most help, but it's getting to the point in the season now where teams are starting to have hitting skills, and these Sauruses really need to get more SPP to keep up, which they don't have, and they're not anywhere close. So we'll see. Honestly, based on the way these teams play, I'm going to say this is a tie. I haven't called too many ties this season, like hard and fast, but I think this one's going to be a tie. A 2-2 tie is what my brain is telling me, but I think 1-1 is more likely. We'll see what happens, though. Up next, we have me versus Chris. Let's see how much money I'm giving Chris. Let's see, like I mentioned before, I will be giving 1240 is my total amount versus Chris's. I have to scroll down now. So annoying. Versus Chris's 1210. So I'm actually not giving him anything, which is a relief and a nice change of pace. We'll see. Let's quick take a look at the stats here. 1 block, guard, which makes up the bigger part. So 2 new blocks, 1 guard. So, and plus 1 strength here, which doesn't matter too much for me, honestly. It's annoying, but what can you do? I'm not sure. Chris is definitely faster than me, which is a big deal, and I'll be dealing with loners. That said, I now have Blodge on these 2. I've got 2 wrestle pieces. I've got kick and he doesn't. I think offensively, in terms of power, we're pretty much tied. Arguably, my blitzers are better because they have Blodge and for agility. I'm going to say I can win this game. Sure. It'll be interesting. I don't know if I'm going to end up trying to grind him out, or if I'm going to try for the shootout. I think I can win the scoring game, but I can't keep up with the gutter runners, so we'll see what happens here. I can definitely put a lot of pressure on that thrower, though, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'll say I'll win it. Sure, it'll probably be like 1 point, but I think I can win. We've got Chaos versus Dwarf next. This should be a pretty good game for Andrew, honestly. Which would be another reason to think about getting block here, or, dare I say it, wrestle on this Beast Man. Just this team is so much stronger than the Dwarf team. 5 strength 4 pieces on a turn, counting the Horns Blitz, is just so much more than this team can deal with. With no levels up this week, too, Orville's not going to have any guard. So once again, the work is going to come down to the Troll Slayers. That said, the Dwarf team is really good at punching people, and punching them really hard. I just don't think the Chaos team can lose this. It's really easy for Chaos to leave a couple of people and tie up 2 to 3 Dwarf players really easily. And once Dwarves get separated, they're easy to pick apart. So we'll see. It's an interesting matchup. Again, I would lean towards Chaos winning this one, though. We'll see. Andrew's luck appears to be slowly turning around. And then last but not least, we have Mark versus Greyduck. I'm interested in this matchup because the Tomb Guardians are so much bigger than the rest of the team, but Mark doesn't have guard, and he's missing 2 skeletons, which is whatever, totally ignorable. He also has 4 rerolls now, so that's interesting. Broken neck, oof, rough. I feel like I didn't look at Mark's matchup. I didn't. He got 40k, and again, no SPP. I'm the worst. Sorry, Mark. But yeah. His SVP is a little more spread out now. He's got, a couple of people close to levels up. I don't know. This is going to be... It's going to be probably pretty hard for both teams, but for different reasons. Hard for Mark just because Mark's had terrible luck all season, and guard is really annoying. But... technically, the Orc team is slower than the Khemri team, and the Khemri team is much stronger than the Orc team does. So if Mark manages to punch out the Black Orcs, there's not a lot these blitzers can do beyond guard and things like that. Kick actually might be the biggest factor here, just because Kick can really force the Khemri team deep, and then grinding forward. We'll see. The first kickoff is going to be a pretty big deal, I think. So 12-10, I believe, was the number we saw for Greyduck. Yes, 12-10. And Mark is working with 11-30, which will be replaced by 2 skeletons. So 12-10, 12-10. No big changes there. I'm going to say Mark's going to win it. Mark is in desperate need of a win. He hasn't happened for a while, I think. What's Mark's record? 1-2-2. Yeah, Mark is looking on 1 win right now. And Greyduck's still totally undefeated. It's got to happen. The tide must turn. The karmic wheel of Blood Bowl will not sit by idly while this happens. Let's take a look at rankings. Greyduck winning again means... if I win my next 2 and she loses her next 2, I would be in first and she would go to second. But we'll be in different brackets, which is okay by me. Man, So the brackets we're talking about, by the way, are 1, 4, 5, and 8, and 2, 3, 6, 7. So it's possible there might be some changing here, but I'm pretty much guaranteed to be in a pool with Mark and Jessup, which is terrifying because that is a lot of punch to deal with. Ugh, not looking forward to that. Yeah, just not great. Let's take a look at the old Hall of Fame. First player to level 3. Good job, me. Best scoring. William up to 4 here. Pretty good deal. Dean, as always, on Mark's team, does the best. Dean is his true champion. Best throwing, I'm still at the top here with 6. More passing done by the Skaven thrower and the human thrower here, but I'm still way at the top here because I throw so much with my thrower. Not too surprising here. No new interceptions this week. Most violent player, most injuries. Orville staying on top of the charts here. Only one player though, but that one player is injuring a lot of people. It's really sad to only see one Khemri player. I mentioned that last week, but it's still sad. Finally slipping down much farther in the running chart, which is definitely what should happen here. Yeah, all these teams run the ball more than I do, because I throw the ball a whole lot. So, good to see that's finally slipping down. Actually, let's take a look at this here, just because I think it's interesting. So, the Lizard team is definitely using the catch and handoff and throwing thing, which is weird for a Lizard team, but let's not get into that. But you can see that by all the skinks are being used to move the ball pretty effectively. Same thing with the Skaven team. The gut, these two gutter runners are the ones doing it, but still things. Well, this is the thrower here. Either way, whatever. And then these big numbers here are, and same thing for the Dwarf team, are due to this one player getting the ball and walking with it for a really long time, and that's kind of how that goes. Best throwing, I'm throwing the farthest, which makes sense because I've thrown the most. Really weird to see Dwarves on here at all, but not surprising, me and Sid crushing this chart really hard. No new deaths this week. Well, no new kills this week. We had a death, but no new things like that. Best receiving, still me. Not too surprising. I'm going to beat this catcher. I promise. It's my goal. All right. So, like I said, this week the rankings are really starting to solidify out in terms of who's going to go where, whose pools are what. Next week, in 2 weeks after we wrap up week 7, we'll go through what the pools are, and we'll go through who I think has the best chance of making the playoffs and all that fun stuff. Because all these rankings are cool and everything, but it doesn't really mean anything whatsoever. Technically, with a Grand Slam, you have to win this section and the next section, but that's not how we're going to count things unofficially. So don't worry about that, I guess. Yeah, preseason effectively is almost over. The SPP farming season is almost over. Quick recap of who I think this is going to be. Tie game here. I think I will win. I think Chaos will win. And I think Mark will win. I don't think I did that, but there you go. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you guys next week.